The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening to talk about professional property management. We're going to give it just a minute or two for everyone to file in here, and then we'll get it started. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come learn about professional property management with us. A little bit about Marshall Reddick Real Estate before we begin. We have 4 areas to our business. We are a real estate brokerage. So we buy, sell, and 1031 exchange investment property and residential real estate. Currently transacting at about 800 properties per year. We're also a professional property management organization. Our professional property management spreads across a number of states. We currently have just under 3,000 properties in the portfolio and adding several a week at this point. So a lot of experience and expertise in this area, and that's what we'll be focusing on this evening. We're also a private money lender. So we help make loans for fix and flips, IOs, bridges, things of this nature. It allows our clients to lend their money and make a return on those investments. And then we also have a private equity investment fund where our investors can pool their money together and our fund managers execute that money out into the marketplace. So we have a number of facets here in which you can make money with real estate through Marshall Reddick. And today we're going to be focusing on property management. So my name is Tyler, and this is Scott Pastel. Scott will be joining us here shortly in a few slides, but Scott is our Vice President of Property Management and Real Estate here at Marshall Reddick. A little bit about Scott. He's been doing this for over 18 years now, full time. He's been licensed since 2010. Scott owns a number of rental properties and has owned a number of other rentals throughout his history here. So a lot of experience, not just in the sale and acquisition of rental properties, but being an owner himself and using Marshall Reddick's property management services on his rentals. Scott purchased his first rental property in 2008 and many more since. And he went to school right here in Chapman University. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tyler. A little bit about me before we get started. I've been licensed since 2017. I went to Clarkson for financial information analysis and portfolio management. So I literally got my college degree in studying portfolios and identifying opportunities. I just recently finished the negotiation mastery program at Harvard. I've done just over 70 transactions for about 45 million in volume, have closed real estate in 13 states. I do have a goal to get to all 50. Alaska has been the toughest one so far. So if anybody out there has any deals in Alaska, please let me know. I would love to help. I personally have over 200 5-star reviews between all these different review platforms here. And I was recently featured on the Icons of Real Estate podcast discussing the importance of real estate reviews. So let's dive in here tonight. We're going to talk about professional property management and why it's so important to the real estate investor. So we have a few different keys in our philosophy here. And first and foremost is partnership. We believe that we should only be making money when you're making money, and that our owners should be never charged when they are losing money or not creating income. So when you work with Marshall Reddick, you will only be paying property management fees when we're actively collecting rent for you, and you're really happy with our service and with your tenants. We really do focus on trust and building strong relationships through transparency. As you will see tonight, everything we do is extremely transparent and very clear cut. We have no red tape, no fine print on anything. It's very easy to understand. And we have found, through being in business since 1979, that that really is the best way to market. And so that's something we really stand behind. And we are investment minded managers. We believe that your real estate is an investment vehicle and it needs to perform in order to be a good investment. There are plenty of properties out there that don't make good investments, and there's plenty of properties that do. And you can have the coolest house in the coolest city, but if your property management is lacking, you're going to have a bad experience. And as your vacancies and maintenance increase, your investment is going to perform poorly. So when we onboard our properties here, we're really doing so from a mindset of working to help your properties perform as absolutely best as possible. So a little bit about the types of properties that we manage. We manage everything from single family homes all the way up to currently 29 unit apartment complexes and everything in between, from your duplexes, your tris, your quads, condos, townhomes, you name it. We onboard unoccupied properties or occupied properties, assuming that you have the right documentation with your tenants. We are a turnkey service. We handle absolutely everything from start to finish, and we really find that that's what our clients enjoy most about the Marshall Reddick program. Majority of our investors have other full-time jobs, whether they're doctors or lawyers, teachers, firefighters, they're in the IT world, they're in the medical world, whatever it may be. And we often find that their lives are very busy, and having a completely turnkey service available to them really allows them to invest in real estate without having to be full-time landlords and taking that time away from their jobs and their families. So everything on the landlord side, from your monthly and annual statements, we put together full profit and loss statements. We put together your full 1099s for you. Everything's provided for you to just hand to your tax person to fill out your Schedule E. Handle absolutely everything. And the same on the tenant side, from their maintenance requests to doing all the background checks, credit checks. We really focus on key and proper tenant placement. And you will see as we go through this that we really screen a lot more thorough than most. And we have found, over doing this for so long, over thousands of properties, that proper tenant placement truly is key. And so that's a big thing that we focus on. Now, when it comes to your actual property, we handle everything from repairs and maintenance to the advertising to the leasing, move in, move outs, make ready renovation, whatever your property needs. And a turnkey service like this, like I had mentioned, is really key for the majority of our investors because they do have lives outside of being landlords themselves. And this service really provides that for them and makes it an option. So how can you save money with a property manager? We could talk about this all day, but we wanted to just hit a few key points here. There's two things that really hurt your investment when it comes to real estate, and that's vacancy and maintenance, right? And when we look at vacancy, we look at how much each vacant day is costing you. Hiring a professional property manager not only ensures that we get proper tenants in a timely manner, keeping your vacancies low, but we're also looking for and placing tenants that are going to stay for much longer than your average 12-month term. This cuts down on your turnovers and cuts down on your vacancies. Having professional property management really does lower your liabilities. Depending where your investments are located, there's going to be a different sets of tenant laws and landlord laws and regulations. And it's very easy to make mistakes and missteps as an owner that can get you into some trouble rather quickly. So having a professional property manager that understands these laws and regulations and can keep you completely compliant will help you save money in the long term. Less expense for repairs and emergencies. This is a big one. Marshall Reddick does not upcharge on any of our maintenance. A lot of our competitors out there will. So let's say that you have a repair that costs $500. A lot of property managers out there will add 10% and pass it along to you. We don't do that. We feel like it's a conflict of interest. And going back to our partnership motto in slide 1, we don't ever want to be making money when you're losing money. So when it comes to doing your maintenance, we get multiple bids from you from all of our license and contract or licensed and insured contractors that we use on our thousands of properties. So A, we can ensure a good job is being done, but B, our contractors know when they're getting a quote request from us that we're also getting a minimum of 2 other quote requests from their competitors. And so it really helps to keep your maintenance costs fair and even. Again, less tenant turnover comes with better quality renters. The longer your renters are staying, the less turnover you have, the less vacancy you have. And so we really do push to put really quality long-term renters into your properties for you. And at the end of the day, this is less stress and less headache from you and less time away from your work and your leisure. So looking at this map, these are the markets that we currently operate in. The markets surrounded in green are where we have physical brick and mortar offices and offer our property management services. The other locations outside of here, we have agents in that can help you with the acquisition and disposal of investment properties, but we don't necessarily have a brick and mortar office in those locations yet. And last slide here before we bring on Scott, this is just a picture of our staff. We've got a couple different locations here on the top right. This is our headquarters staff in Newport Beach, California. This is a mix of agents, property management, our back-end IT, accounting, our private lending, and our mortgage fund staff. Off to the left, you're going to see our San Antonio staff. Bottom left, this is our Clarksville, Tennessee office. They were just voted the best real estate office in Clarksville, so congrats to you guys. In the bottom middle here, this is our Florida staff, and bottom right, that's our Central Texas. This team is growing quite rapidly, and if you guys attend another one of our webinars in the next month or so, you'll see a bunch of new faces in here. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in Scott to dive deeper into the professional property management, and then I'll come back on at the end to round things out. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you here shortly.
Thank you, Tyler. Great job. I really appreciate that awesome intro. Great start to our presentation here, and thanks for setting the stage here. So thanks again for also introducing me in the beginning. Folks, again, this is Scott Pastel, VP of Property Management and Real Estate at Marshall Reddick. As Tyler mentioned, I've been with the company a little over 18 years. I started in 2005. Started as an intern, in my 20s. Was I guess bold enough and you could say wise enough at the time to purchase my first property in 2008. So I've been a property owner, specifically a rental property owner, for 15 years in different states and different markets, and then becoming a full-time employee with Marshall Reddick in 2006. Ended up working my way up to VP of Property Management. So obviously there's a lot of history there, but within the world of property management, it's really an art. It's something that I feel like you just continuously learn more and more and more. And this is a presentation that we've done a few other times. This might be our second or third time giving this specific presentation, but as property managers, we really like educating new and current clients on what professional property management is compared to anything else that wouldn't be considered professional management. Every day we get phone calls, emails, inbound communication from property owners. Sometimes have been managing their own properties. Sometimes have been having family or friends manage properties. Some of them have tried using realtors to manage properties, and others have used different property management companies in the past. So there's a very clear distinction between professional property management and layman property management, I guess you could say. So that's really what this presentation is all about. So we'll be going through what makes a professional property manager like Marshall Reddick different than all the rest. So these are just this slide here, 10 different things, and really this is more of a condensed summary, if you will, of what a property manager does. First and foremost, a professional management company like us does not take every property that comes our way. We don't say yes to every property, just like we don't say yes to every tenant applicant. Not every property in every market fits our portfolio. So right off the bat, if you're talking to a property manager that knows exactly the kinds of properties that they do and don't manage, that's a good sign. If you're talking to a property manager that essentially would say yes to anything, even if you have a very unique, obscure situation, if they're not asking you the right questions, I would turn away and look somewhere else. So, even before we get started on this list here, when we're talking to a property owner, if they already own the asset, Tyler and our business development team, they'll ask, sometimes 20, 30, 40 questions to really understand the property, the situation, the dynamic, to make sure that we can step in and not only have it fit our portfolio and make sure that we have the proper infrastructure and services in place, but so that we know exactly what to focus on and that we don't overlook anything important in the initial onboarding of that property. So when we do take on a property that's already owned by an owner, if that property is in need of getting rented, we will walk that property, and not just anybody on our team, but our maintenance manager will do a full onboard inspection, usually about maybe an hour or so, to document a list of repairs and items that need to get addressed. The term in our industry is called punch list. Punch list is what a property manager will call the list of items that needs to get updated or fixed, addressed, in order to make that property rent ready. After we put together that punch list, we're going to send it out to different vendors that we work with. These could be handymen or general contractors, painters, plumbers, any service vendors that that specialize in the types of repairs that are needed for that property. As we're going to talk about, a professional management company like us has a handful of vendors in each category. So multiple plumbers, multiple handyman, multiple electricians, multiple house cleaners. And we also have vendors that service different zip codes, different parts of town. We have many that overlap, and that's because we have a portfolio of hundreds of properties. And if, let's say one contractor is not able to get work started quickly, we'll have a list of others that we rotate that are. So we'll be able to get estimates from a variety of vendors that will provide to the landlord. Now, our estimates come from the vendor. That means we don't add any markups, we don't pad any fees in the renovations or repairs. And that's also something that you want to be watchful for. Now, first of all, the structure of our company is that we do not do repairs in-house, and that's intentional. That is by design. We believe that a property manager should make money when the landlord makes money and shouldn't make money when the landlord loses money. So we're intentionally structured to not receive revenue off of repairs and maintenance. I'll be talking a little bit later about our project management fee, which only applies to a small fraction of our homes that are doing big renovations on. But anything aside from that, we do not charge any markups on the renovations, maintenance, repairs. So we'll be able to provide these estimates to the landlord and justify the work needed. After our landlord approves the work, we'll provide them with a rental property analysis to show them currently rented and recently rented properties within a very close radius, very similar properties, similar bed, bath, and square footage, similar age, and to justify the fair market rent that we're recommending to the owner. We don't go off of software algorithms like Zillow or Rentometer. We do our own independent analysis on every single property. Once the repairs are completed and the property's rent ready, we'll coordinate professional photos and we'll list the property on every single major rental platform. That is very important because not many property managers take professional photos, and not many property managers or layman property managers are able to get properties listed on all rental platforms. Zillow, which we all know to be the largest rental property platform, has a fee. Not all property managers, realtors, and landlords pay that fee. However, we do. So where we may be able to see 60, 70% of leads come through Zillow's rental group of Zillow, Trulia, and HotPads, other realtors, landlords, and property managers may not even be getting their properties visible on those websites. That is a huge, huge oversight if your properties are not listed on all of the major platforms. So once we have the listing up, we'll start generating leads for that listing. We have an assigned licensed realtor assigned to each one of our rental listings. These are realtors that specifically lease properties for Marshall Reddick. These are Marshall Reddick realtors. They screen all the applicants over the phone first. So we make sure that every inquiry that we get, no matter if it's a text, email, or phone call, goes through a phone, holds a actual live phone call. Now we get to ask maybe anywhere from about maybe 8 to 10 questions. We ask if they've applied to any of their properties, if they've been approved yet, how many people are going to be living with them, what their relationship is, if they have any pets, what their credit range is, income range, why they're moving, where they're moving from, and several other questions. These questions help us weed out anybody over the phone that we might be able to just tell right off the bat wouldn't qualify. We hold showings by appointment only, guided by our leasing agent. I stress that because not all property managers do actual showings by licensed realtors in-house. In fact, not all property managers even show their properties. There's a lot of property managers out there who look for more convenience rather than effectiveness, or efficiency over effectiveness. That can be a dangerous slipping slope for a property manager, because obviously having applicants go see the property on their own can save a property manager a lot of money. Is that effective? And is that effective for your rental property, which is losing money every day it's vacant? I would argue absolutely not. Having a educated, responsible person that's familiar with the property to walk them through it, turn the lights on, meet them there, get there early, and answer all their questions has ensured a very high application rate for us. Once we receive an application, we do all the screening and background checks. There are 5 different types of background checks that we do. I'll be going over those background checks in a little bit more detail on this call. But we're about as extensive as it gets. It's not just a credit check and a criminal background check. I'll be going over our employment verifications, rental history verifications, and income verifications here in a little bit. We also require renters to carry renter's insurance and ensure a number of other checkpoints before we hand over the keys. Collecting the rent is, I guess that's where the trail of 1,000 steps starts, because of course collecting rent is the first thing. But enforcing the lease agreement, doing periodic inspections, doing all tenant communication, troubleshooting maintenance requests, the list goes on and on and on. Anybody can collect rent, but setting the right precedents and making sure that the tenants are following the lease agreement is really what good property management all boils down to. We do our own random inspections sometimes on properties. We also do a standard lease renewal inspection before we sign a 12-month extension once the lease term is completed. So we make sure that we're doing inspections on our properties at a minimum of once a year. If that doesn't sound like very often to you, ask any property manager how often they do routine inspections. You're probably going to find that they don't. And most property managers will walk the property before they place the tenant and won't walk it again until after that tenant moves out, even if that's 3, 4, 5 years. That is the common practice in our industry. So to be able to do annual inspections is actually much more rare than you might think in the industry. Our owners receive monthly and year-end statements. They have a portal through our software Appfolio where our owners can check their statements, view all maintenance, all their expenses, all documentation on the property, the lease agreement, the inspections, invoices for repairs are all uploaded to our owner portal. There's also a mobile app for our tenants and our landlords to sign into. And as I mentioned, we do those routine inspections at a minimum of once a year. So I would say I probably just gave you about maybe 15 to 20% of what we do here at Marshall Reddick in property management. This is, we can just share this for a minute here. This is the life cycle of a property in property management. It starts with us doing that initial walkthrough. We do take over tenant occupied properties, as Tyler said. When the property has a renter in it, we will schedule a walkthrough inspection within the first month, which isn't going to be quite as detailed as a vacant property inspection where we're able to test all appliances, water fixtures, smoke alarms, and see the entire property. When it's rented, we're mainly going to look for any lease violations or building code violations. We're going to ensure that the tenant is not breaking their lease by having any pets if they're not supposed to, not misusing any appliances, making sure that there's no habitability issues, no mold issues, and that there's no maintenance that the tenants have not communicated yet. But either way, whether it's vacant or occupied, we're going to do a very, very detailed inspection, provide that analysis to the landlord. The rental analysis you will receive, in fact, you'll get a rental analysis before you even sign a management agreement with us, as we're able to do that pro bono for all potential landlords. While you sign our management agreement, which is electronic through DocuSign, you'll have Tyler here walking you through it to answer all questions that you have. Go over some of the addenda with you. If your property is in a homeowners association, we'll be having you sign an HOA addendum that allows us to speak on your behalf to the HOA management company so that you don't have to forward any correspondence or communicate with anybody at HOA. We'll take that over. You'll also be able to get logged into your portal, and we'll be able to walk you through how to use that portal right away once you get started. In the onboarding, we're going to ask for your insurance. We might ask for any other details if your property has a pool or any other unique components, water softeners, solar panels. We'll be making sure we get all that information. If you have a home warranty, we're going to get all that information so that we really just have all the documentation that we could possibly have on your property. So you don't need to continuously send us these things throughout the course of time. I mentioned if the property is vacant, that's when we're going to do our inspection, provide you with that punch list and estimates for the work needed. Going down again, we'll do the professional photos, advertising, showings. We generate applications. We have our own application system online. Tenants have to provide their last 60 days pay stubs and last 60 days bank statements, along with paying the application fee, which is about $45 to $55, depending on our state. As you've seen, we manage properties in California, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida. So our application process is slightly different in each market, but I would say about 90% the same. We go through the screening and background checks. We let the landlord know when we have an approved application. If somebody did not meet our income, credit, criminal background, employment, or rental history verifications, we decline them on your behalf so that you do not have to go through that not so fun process of declining applications. We do that for you. And when we have an approved applicant, we can provide you with what we're legally allowed to provide based on federal fair housing laws and the Consumer Privacy Act, meaning we can let you know the number of applicants, their relationship, if they have pets, what they do for work, their income range, their credit range. But there is some protected information that we're not legally allowed to provide. However, I think we feel confident that our landlords receive all of the necessary information they need. And then we do make those approvals on behalf of the landlord. We make sure all of our landlords are very clear on our application requirements. That way you know exactly what we're going to decline and what we are going to approve. We only sign leases with people that are able to move within under a month. So we're not going to sign a lease and approve somebody that's very far out and moving in. Once we sign the lease, we upload it to the landlord portal so that they get a copy. Our landlord receives a copy of the lease and all that addendum right away. We will do the move-in. That means that we provide the tenants with the utility information. We have them confirm with us once they've set up utilities. They have to show us that and make sure that they paid their security deposit and all move-in costs before we provide them with their keys to the property. And then before we get the key handoff, we do our own move-in inspection about a day or two before the tenants move in. That way we document the condition of the property right before the tenants move, if it's vacant. If it's already an occupied property, we'll provide the walkthrough inspection to the landlord after we've done our inspection. And then we provide all ongoing maintenance. So we do all of the tenant communication, 100% of the tenant communication on behalf of the landlord. We're able to troubleshoot and and close out about 20% of the work orders without actually having to go to the property. So the first thing, once a tenant submits a work order, they are going to talk to our tenant coordinator, who can often walk them through the issue without us even having to send out a vendor or having to charge you anything for that visit. If we do have to send out a vendor, we will not be able to approve any repairs $400 or more without your approval, and that's written into our property management agreement. On top of that, again, we don't make money from those repairs, and we also ensure that we charge the tenant for things that they are responsible for. That's another difference between a good property manager and a not professional property manager. Is a professional property manager does all of these inspections so that when a repair comes up during occupancy, we know exactly what was working and the condition at move-in, which allows us to charge the tenant for things they are responsible for. Without doing all that documentation, it becomes very sticky to charge tenants for things if you do not have that documentation before they moved in. Lastly, we do those annual property inspections and move-out inspections once the tenants move out. The move-out inspection is cross-referenced with the move-in inspection. We get estimates from vendors for all repairs needed after the tenants move out. It makes for a very seamless, cut and dry process for us to make deductions of the security deposits, because the estimates are itemized and we compare the move-in and move-out inspections to know exactly what the tenant is charged for. And they're not charged for $1 more than they should be, and they're not charged for $1 less than they should be either. And that is often one of the hardest parts of property management. Okay, as we go to the next slide here. So when our maintenance managers are walking a property that's vacant, whether a tenant just moved out or whether the landlord just moved out, we're going to do a full inspection. So we're going to test electrical outlets, we're going to test appliances, we're going to turn on all the lights, we're going to check smoke detectors, CO2 monitors. Essentially, we're going to basically touch and play around with the water fixtures and everything in that property to make sure everything is functioning from a safety and functioning standpoint. And then we also, of course, do cosmetic inspections as well. Now, we're mainly going to be looking at whether this property can be considered move-in ready. Of course, cleanliness is also a big one. So that might mean that we, recaulk a bathtub, we might regrout tile. But if the property is not something that we need to do a complete rebuild on, that's not really what we're looking for. And very few of our properties that we take on are brand new construction. So we've got properties that are 20 years old, 40 years old, 80 years old, 100 years old. So paint and flooring are some of the biggest components of a rental property. We're going to look at and see if we can do touch-ups of paint or touch-ups of flooring to save the owner money. If we feel that we're not going to be able to do the right touch-ups and the flooring is old and worn or the paint is old and worn and showing obvious signs of wear and tear, that's where we're going to recommend an update. Now, we may only need to repaint a property once every 7 to 10 years, but if it looks like it's been about that long, it's possible that we're going to recommend that. And that might make some of the biggest difference in a tenant's desire to move into a property or create a challenge for us to get tenants to apply. Now, as I mentioned here at the bottom, Good property managers are going to understand the market rate of rent in a particular area. We'll know exactly what we can get for rent no matter how much money goes into that property. We'll also know areas that are emerging markets that are seeing increases of rents that are attracting very high demand of renters that have a very low supply of rental properties, and we might be able to justify more in rent if we do a little bit of repairs on those properties. We're certainly going to be able to recommend whether it makes sense to put more money into the property or not, based on those factors. Not to mention, again, we're going to do the proper work that's needed for that property, but we don't cut corners. No matter how low the rent is, whether it's a 1-bed, 1-bath condo or a 5-bed, 5-bath, 10,000 square foot property, we are not in the business of cutting corners. So if the property needs work, we're going to recommend it. If the owner is not looking to do the work that we recommend, we can certainly help them sell the property. But that might also be a scenario where we may not be the right fit for every property or every owner. Just showing you a list. This is just the first 2 pages of our property condition list. Our maintenance managers actually use the digital list in our software Appfolio. They go through room by room, take dozens of pictures. They make notes directly on their iPad or phone while they are doing the inspection at the property. So we don't make, it's not handwritten, it's all done digitally now. This is just a screenshot of some of the things that we look at in a property, and it's extremely detailed. We're basically doing an unofficial building inspection. We're not a licensed building inspector. So we don't go on the roof, and we don't necessarily check like foundation or able to do plumbing inspections. However, we have all the vendors. If we've got a property with an older roof, or if it's had recent roof leaks, we can recommend roof inspectors. We can recommend plumbing, HVAC inspectors. We can recommend all these different inspectors if it's needed. We'll be able to look at everything on the interior of the property on our own. So you can kind of see here, again, our template's a little bit different now, but when we provide the estimates to our landlords, it's itemized. It's also on the vendor's letterhead. So you'll see exactly which vendors we're recommending. You can look them up on Yelp or online. We have a pretty tight vendor onboarding process. We absolutely do not bring on every vendor, every handyman or contractor. They have to be licensed, bonded, insured. Typically we get vendors through, word of mouth or landlords or property managers that they've worked with in the past. And we have anywhere from about 50 to about 200 vendors in each of our markets. But you'll be able to see that itemized list, and we'll go over that with you and get your approval and explain why all this work needs to get done. We have properties that need almost no work, and we might be able to, do a cleaning and almost no repairs. We have properties we bring on that might need $10,000, $15,000 worth of work, maybe even more in some cases. So in any case, we can do work for a property of about up to $25,000. Anything more than that, we typically recommend a contracting company to do a major remodel above $25,000, but we're able to do that in-house. Anywhere from up to about 25,000 or so by us doing the project management. So, what makes a good property manager when it comes to maintenance and repairs? Well, right off the bat, if you're getting invoices and estimates for repairs that are coming directly from the property manager, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the ones that are doing the work. And that's really something that you want to learn and understand from the very beginning. Do they do repairs in-house? What repairs do they do in-house? What repairs do they outsource? Now, in property management, there's often a conflict of interest with companies that do repairs and maintenance in-house. And you can imagine if they're making money while you're losing money, is that really the best structure of landlord property manager? If they are profiting again, in that type of a category, what interest do they have to make sure that your repairs and maintenance are at a minimum? A company that does maintenance and repairs in-house and makes money from maintenance can often be very slick in charging lower management fees, but not making it very clear that they're also making money from repairs and maintenance. And some of those companies may not even allow you to use outside vendors. If you have a handyman or contractor you've used in the past, some property managers won't even let you use them, and they'll say, nope, we got to be the ones that do all the work. And I think that raises a lot of questions. I think a company like us that can get 3 bids for paint, 3 bids for flooring, 3 bids for appliances, or multiple bids for any large repairs, and that will even bring in new vendors that some landlords have used on their own in the past, shows that we have no conflict of interest in repairs and are really just looking to get the best pricing possible. So that transparency means that a property manager like us can do multiple bids for different work, can provide estimates on the vendor's letterhead. We'll explain to you who their vendors are. We also have a 24-hour emergency service hotline. So if tenants have issues after hours between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., there's always somebody for our tenants to talk to after hours. We do not add charges or additional fees for the repairs and maintenance that we do. Now, you want to have transparency and you want to be able to understand every way that your property manager is making money. If it's just not adding up and you're not really seeing it, it's likely that they're making money on something that might not be benefiting you as much as it's benefiting them. And as I put there on the bottom, watch out for those property managers that charge 5 or 6%. Look for other ways that they're making money. The industry standard of property management is about 7 to 8%. Really, I think it's about 7 to 10%. So if you see anything lower than that, you've got to ask yourself, how else are they making money? Do they have all of these other nickel and dime ancillary fees that are built into their property management agreement? Do they charge onboard fees and trip fees and maintenance coordination fees and all these other fees that might not be very clear? Or maybe they're not even really communicating that in their agreement, and they just make a lot of money from maintenance and repairs, which again does not mean that you're going to get the best pricing. So when it comes to us renting properties, we do a minimum 12-month lease. We do long-term property management. In some cases, we can approve a lease slightly longer for maybe about up to 18 months. We typically don't do leases longer than that for new renters. We'd like to get to know them first. We'd like to give them the opportunity to show us that they're a good renter before we do a long-term commitment. But essentially, it's a minimum 12 months. Our job when we're leasing the property is threefold. We have 3 objectives, and we cannot do one without the others. So our primary job when leasing a property is that we rent the property for the highest amount of money in the shortest amount of time to the best qualified renters. Now, all 3 of those are important. And in fact, I would venture to say the best quality renters are the most important. So if we have a property that we feel is listed too high, where maybe the landlord decided they wanted to go a little bit higher than our recommendation, we're going to be very quick to let them know in that first week that we're not getting enough traffic to attract enough showings and applicants. Now we got to make sure that we rent the property in a short amount of time. It doesn't really, solve the issue enough if we've rented the property, but it took us 3 or 4 months. We aim to rent all of our properties in under 30 days or less. And if we go over 30 days, that's when the alarm starts going off, and we start saying, we've got to rent this property immediately because 90% of all of our properties rented under 30 days. And if it goes longer, we know there's a problem. I would say about 4 out of 5 times that problem is the rent price. We've been in some shifting markets last year. We're starting to see the rental market shift a little bit more right now with a little bit more inventory on the market in some locations. We're constantly evaluating every week on all of our vacant properties if they're priced accordingly. In a dynamic shifting market like right now, it's important that we're constantly looking at whether we're priced well and whether the property is showing up on all of the correct websites. We've had properties and we've seen properties get automatically removed from Realtor and Zillow, without us doing anything, just essentially like, a software problem that they may have removed the property. If that happens to you and you're not working with a company that's constantly evaluating it, and your property accidentally got removed weeks ago without your property manager realizing it, that's a big problem. Our leasing agents look on an almost daily basis at how much traffic the property is getting, how many interests we're getting, how many saves and clicks and interest. And we're constantly looking at other properties in the area to see if any others have come up recently that we're competing against. And these are all things that a good property manager will do. It's very important that those of you that own rental properties, that you take the average monthly rent for your property and divide it by 30 so that you understand the daily vacancy cost. And at the bottom, we have an example of a property that rents for $3,000 a month. Every day, that property is losing $100. So you can do the math on any of your rental properties, or if you have a vacancy right now or one coming up, and you take, let's say, the average fair market value divided by 30, that gets pretty expensive, right? I mean, a week of vacancy can cost $1,000 or thousands of dollars. So we make sure that we're reducing that vacancy as much as possible to make the most money in the long run. If you have a property that rents for $3,000 a month, 3 months of vacancy just costed you almost $10,000, right? And if you use the right management company that prices it well, takes good photos, makes sure it's rented on all major platforms, and rents it in under 30 days, well, in that example, you just saved at least $6,000. So, when you're really looking at the difference in leasing fees with management companies or management fees with management companies, it can be a very negligible difference. The question is, how are they leasing? How are they doing property management? How are they taking pictures? How are they screening applicants? Those are questions you want to ask. Not what do you charge, but how do you handle maintenance and repairs? How do you handle inspections? How do you handle leasing? That is the smartest questions that a landlord can ask. So we're very detailed in our rental property, our rental analysis, because we are very good at reducing vacancy and keeping that under 30 days in almost every example. But checking Zillow and checking a software algorithm is not the way to do it. You'll get a full detailed report with actual properties that are currently for rent or have recently rented very close to yours. So we'll use some of this criteria to look at bed, bath, square footage, zip code. We'll go back about 6 months. We'll look at properties that have rented the soonest. If your property has a pool, we'll look at properties that have pools. We try to look at the most similar properties possible and give you a sample of those properties to justify the suggested rent we are recommending. You'll meet our leasing agents when it's time for them to list the property. They'll reach out to you directly. You'll have one leasing agent assigned to each of your rental properties at Marshall Reddick. They'll provide you that rental analysis report. They can show you examples of other properties they've rented. They'll go over our screening process in more detail. But most importantly, they'll provide you proactive updates at least once a week, typically on Tuesdays, with how many showings they've done in the last week, how many inquiries they've gotten, how many applications we've received, any feedback we're getting from those showings. And that's very rare. Most property managers will not provide proactive updates on an ongoing basis during the vacancy. You've got to constantly reach out to find out what's going on. Not us. You'll be getting those proactive updates at a minimum of once a week. You'll see the listing as soon as it's live. So a lot of transparency and communication. We'll be able to share with you guys our applications on our website. You can actually see our applications directly on our website. If you go to marshallreddick.com, click on services and then homes for rent, you can click on an application. This is just one small part of it. It goes over our minimum rental history, our credit, minimum credit score, and really just it's extremely detailed. For us, a minimum credit score is not enough. You have to have at least a 600 credit to not be automatically declined. But if you have over 600, we're still going to look for evictions, judgments, settlements, 90-day late payments on different lines of credit. And we do sometimes disqualify people, even if they have over 600, if we see enough derogatory items on their credit report. We've looked at our ratios of approved applications versus declined. We're at about a 60-40%, meaning, we only approve about 60% of the applications we receive. So if you look at that, there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes to make sure that we're not placing people that we feel would not be the right fit and would not take care of that property, pay rent on time, and do everything we're looking for our renters to do. Tyler and our business development team can answer many questions you have on our screening and background check process. As I said, it's about as extensive and detailed as any property management company. If you do go on our website to the services tab and click on homes for rent, you can click on any of those orange buttons that say tenant application, and you can read our requirements. They're publicly advertised. We adhere to the same requirements no matter who's applying, no matter whether the property rents for $1,000 or $25,000. We've got the same screening and background checks. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Tyler. Tyler, thanks a lot for letting me go over that.
Yep, thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate you, and I know you're very busy, so thank you for your time here tonight. Guys, I think I can speak for everyone when I say that we can certainly hear 18 years worth of experience in the last 25 minutes that we got from Scott. He has a lot of experience, a lot of education, and hopefully there's a lot of value brought to you guys in there. So I'm just going to wrap this up here. Again, we appreciate you being here with us this evening, and we're almost there. So just in finalization here, qualities to look for in your property manager. A couple things we like to point out is the importance of a strong website and software. So we have a tenant and a landlord portal as part of our services. Your tenants can log in at any time. They'll be able to pay their rent on there. They're also able to issue any maintenance requests or things of that nature. But you as the landlord can also log in, see your rent being paid, see your maintenance schedules, all of that. And so we really like to touch on the fact that we've spent a lot of time and money really working to provide an incredible service and incredible tools for our owners. And we think that that's very important. When you are looking at your property managers, you want to understand if there is a conflict of interest with the maintenance. Again, at Marshall Reddick, we don't upcharge on any of our maintenance, and we strive to get the most competitive bids that we can from licensed and insured and bonded contractors in our network. Not only is that to help keep your costs low, but we think it's very important that your property manager should not be using maintenance and some negatives that you may experience as a profit center for them. Responsiveness, absolutely key, right? We see with a lot of property managers, everyone in the office, they wear all the hats. And when you call in, you're just going to happen to get whoever is there today. Here at Marshall Reddick, our property management staff is fully W-2, and everyone is assigned to their owners and their tenants. So when you call in, you're always going to be speaking to the same people. You're going to know them. They're going to know you. They're going to know the history of the property. They're going to understand everything that's been going on. So you find that you don't have to repeat yourself, and it saves a lot of time. Also, because they're W-2, when you call, they're going to be there to pick up the phone. That's also important from your tenant's perspective because it allows your tenant to have a really incredible experience too. Just like you're going to have a dedicated property manager, your tenant is going to have a dedicated tenant coordinator. So when they call in, should they need to, they're always going to be speaking to the same person who they know and who knows them and understands the background of the lease. And it just provides a really good experience on both sides of the transaction. I invite everyone here to check out our reviews on Yelp and Google and Zillow. We hope that we've conveyed to you this evening our expertise and our professionalism and our experience in this sector. However, we think it speaks much more volume when our landlords are describing their experiences with us. And so we certainly invite you to review those reviews. And at the end of the day, when you look at it, cost versus service, which is more important, like Scott had touched on, the cost deltas between property managers are very minimal, within a percent of each other. But you want to make sure that you're getting the most for your money. So we certainly recommend to really look at the service that you're getting when you're interviewing property managers because you want to have a really good experience. A bad property manager can really taint a really good investment, and we don't want that to happen for you guys. Again, like I mentioned with the reviews, please feel free. This is just a handful of our review sites, but you can find us all over online in all of our different markets and different venues such as Google and Zillow and Yelp. And we certainly invite you to review those reviews. We think that they speak loads and volumes about our professionalism and our expertise. And we're very proud of the number of positive reviews that we've gotten from our clients. To learn more about our services and fees, simply visit marshallreddick.com/management. Here you can see this is where your tenants will be logging into their portal and where you'll be logging into yours, so on and so forth. You can click into the different markets down below to see the pricing and service structures in each of those individual markets. So we invite you to check those out. And if you would like to, we hope that you would schedule a complimentary consultation with us and just fill in a little bit of information here. Basically, your contact information and the property address. That's going to come to one of the people on the business development side of the organization. They're going to pull up your property, do some brief research on it, and then reach out to you. Again, we're going to have a number of questions. Our goal is to really understand your property as in-depth as possible, but also your needs and your timelines. And, we want to address any concerns that you have, so on and so forth. We really strive to understand you and your situation as best as we possibly can, so we can ensure that we match up the correct services for you so that your investment performs properly, you have a really good experience, and our hope is that you then leave us our next 5-star review online. And in closing, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Again, my name is Tyler. This is all of my direct contact information here. I invite everyone here to reach out to me directly for any questions that you may have. I'm more than happy to go over our services more in depth, to look at your property in particular, to run comps on your property. I can also show you property maps of all the locations we manage around your property, if that helps provide comfortability for you and our expertise in that area. And after this presentation concludes in the next few days, I'll be reaching out to everyone to follow up, get your feedback, see what you thought of the presentation, and answer any questions you may have. Everybody, thank you one more time for being here this evening. We know that your time is valuable, so we appreciate you spending it with us. We hope to do business with you in the future, and I'll be talking to everybody soon. Have an absolutely wonderful night, and thank you again, guys. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Tyler.